Okay, so relative to the current site, the my understanding is the last time anybody touched it, it was Pat. And so he may not have had the keys originally, but I think he has the keys most recently. He was looking at trying to get it back online and decided it required time and expertise he didn't have. And that's why he and Bailey did the brainstorm thing about, okay, what are we going to do? So, but it's deployed. How is it deployed, Eric? Is it's in a repo and then it just deploys out of the repo? Is it a GitHub pages or is there something else going on?
So the Markdown book is going to use GitHub Pages. It looks like the original used GitHub Pages too, with whatever
What
framework they were
so
using.
yeah, so all you really need to do is take your current branch in your repo and submit a pull request to put it back into wazi.dev, right?
I believe so. It looks
Okay.
like GitHub does a lot of like automagic stuff under the hood with GitHub Pages. That's my understanding anyway.
Yeah, and that's how we host the bytecodelance.org website is that way, out of a GitHub repo on the gh-pages branch. So
Yeah.
it'll auto deploy. And I don't
So
know that
if
anybody's
y'all are good with
super
it,
concerned about like, a radical change in what's there now, or just magically we wake up one morning and it's the book rather than what we currently have. So I don't know if there's a whole lot of, oh, we must preserve stuff that's on the site now.
mhm.
Um, so
Yeah, if y'all are good with it, I'll just convert it from a draft PR to a PR
yeah, and
and
then we'll just need to figure out
run
who
with it.
who's going to approve that.
Yeah.
So
I'll ping Bailey and see.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I think I had two outstanding questions with that are kind of brief. One, I know I pitched MD book hard, but by the end of the meeting, you'd convinced me Docusaurus. So I'm
Without
curious.
trying to.
Yes, mainly because of the option to have tabs when we were talking about examples.
Mhm.
Um, what are your thoughts on MD book versus Docusaurus? Because I do think whatever gets PR'd in will stay. We can say that we might mix it up later, but it probably won't as likely mix up.
That's a great
Um,
point.
so yeah,
Um,
and also from Docusaurus examples, it seems like you can edit the UI and have a little bit more personality there than you can
mhm.
with MD book. So um, yes, was curious if we should revisit that discussion.
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm sort of quickly Googling tabs in Markdown book right now, which is not coming up with useful results. I bet I bet the
I'm pretty
functionality
sure it
exists,
doesn't
but
have it.
oh, okay, okay. Um, I like the simplicity of Markdown book. I also kind of like the parity between that and the component book, like the kind of consistency across it, but tabbed options seem really nice. And yeah, being able to put in a little more like graphic design work in the future would be a good sort of option to give ourselves. I mean, it really wouldn't be hard to convert it over to Docusaurus. I'm super persuadable there. Kate, it sounds like you're at this point kind of more in favor of
What does
that.
the component book use?
So the component book does use MD book, and I get what you're saying, Eric, that maybe we should have consistency. Um, we can stick with MD book, and then we might move both to Docusaurus, essentially, if we want to revamp the look of both of them.
And then
Because I think
the troublemaker variant of that is, well, let's go ahead and do DocuBook with the Wazi book, and then we only have one to convert.
right.
Plus, we have an example that we can use persuasively. I don't know who we'd have to convince to convert the component book. Uh,
Um, I mean, I guess the people who would be likely to be offended who won't be would be Ivan and I who made that
I mean,
decision.
is this
So
right? Is this all part of the SIG documentation coup where we then just like, having planted our flag on the new Wazi.dev, the work team moves over and tackles the component book and works with you and Ivan and gets that done or something? Or yeah, okay. I mean, that seems totally reasonable.
Yeah, I'm very happy to just move it over to Docusaurus. Like, I don't know, I could doubt I can do it today, but I could probably do it tomorrow. And then I can just put in a new PR with the same content in that framework, and that sounds good.
the only other thing that I wanted to mention is you mentioned in the MD book runtimes that support WASI. And I was curious where you got that list from, because some of them I didn't realize they did.
It was from Pat and Bailey's gist that they'd sort of brainstormed. I just took it straight from that.
Cool.
So yeah, that's
And
I bring no authoritative knowledge on that. I was trusting the source document there.
there's one I'm checking just because did not realize. But that's great. That's what documentation's for, is to make you learn new things. Okay, yeah. Yeah, very cool. Well, yeah, I think if from my opinion, I think it makes sense to make it go ahead and flip the switch on the PR. Um, it already adds so much more explanation to what WASI is than what we currently have, and I like the structure a lot. And then once you flip the switch on the PR, we can in SIG Docs kind of um evangelize it, like tell people to look at it. And that sounds ideal to me.
Cool. That's easy.
Is there any obvious continuation of it that you see? Because I think sometimes when we make initial pushes, like from my perspective, I won't make the secondary push because I feel so good about the initial one.
Yeah.
Is it helpful to think about the secondary push right now?
I think maybe not right now, but when we have a larger group at the next meeting or the one after that, whenever that is, I'd love to talk about that and nail down what the secondary push is, because completely agree. Yeah, it's easy to be like, all right, did the thing, I'll move on to other things. But yeah, I'd like to uh, make sure that second push is on the calendar.
Great, that sounds good.
Any other things we think we need to address during this kind of like event period and before the before we come back, presumably all refreshed and clear-headed and prepped and ready to go in like 2 weeks or something?
One other thing for when you submit the pull request, or when we eventually get the pull request to merge this back into the wazi.dev repo, it would be good to add a README.
Yeah,
The
definitely.
repo currently doesn't have one, so it doesn't have to be elaborate, but this
I'll
is
do
the only
that.
other thing I noticed. I was thinking about the whole deployment, and then who's going to be. We have people with the right access permissions to that repo, stuff like that. So for maintaining the work going forward.
Yeah, I'll make sure to add a README to the DocuSource implementation, which, like I said, I imagine will be maybe tomorrow. I'll get a PR in for that.
Also, we forgot to identify a note taker for this meeting at the beginning. I think we.
I realize that too. So I've mentally been trying to keep track of what we're saying, and
Okay,
I'll
that's good. Yeah.
take some notes and push them up.
So do we think we'll meet next week? Will we have people back? Or
I think if we're comfortable doing these shorter meetings, like I imagine we'll hop off soon. I don't mind keeping it at a quick cadence like this, but to your point, Eric, of whether we will have people to do a second push on wazi.dev is a different discussion, but I think it might make sense to keep the meeting, and maybe we find that in this week we get a lot of feedback on documentation. So that could be helpful because people are going to be having conversations, and so maybe we'll gather that feedback and put it into some actions next week.
Sounds good.
yeah, I know some folks had mentioned KubeCon Europe, and I think it's next week. So right. There are other agenda topics?
That's what I have.
All right. Well, then, but Kate's the chair.
No, I think this was great. I think it was just such a good book that we didn't need to even talk about it too much. Great. So then I think we can call this meeting to a close and then meet again next week and see where we're at with everything. And
I did. Oh, I thought of one other thing I thought of, Eric, which is so we get the book and we finally get it merged in and it's published. And now we have a 2-volume collection in the encyclopedic library of the bytecodealliance.org. Maybe we should put some mention on bytecodealliance.org. I'm not exactly sure how. I think we point people at the component book somewhere. I'll have to go back and look. But I don't know whether we want to do that or not. We want to just leave this as kind of the obvious site for WASI. It's wazi.dev. And if people happen across it, that's great. Or do we want to, is there someplace on bytecodealliance.org that we need to highlight that these are two sort of semi-curated authoritative references that we have above and beyond pointing people at our project? I think for wazi.dev, we point people at it because it's the project homepage, but maybe we should add a little more text there. So I'll take a look at that and think about that, and then we can talk about it later on. But
That's what I was gonna say. Maybe that's a good agenda item for next week.
Yeah.
I'll
I'll poke around and see where, because I'll double check where we're calling attention to the component book as well. All right.
Awesome.
Thanks.
great. Well, with that, I think we can hop off. Thanks for joining, everyone.
Take care, all.